Okay.
Like, what if we had a hook system that was sophisticated enough that you could build durable execution with hooks? And then people could bring their own durable execution implementation.
I'm a little worried that I see the value in that for sure. But I am a little worried that if you go that deep on hooks, you're going to make the system so complicated that it'll become mostly unusable unless it's so well documented that AI can just write all of your hooks for you, which maybe that's okay.
Everyone's going to rewrite it, but it just let you have options, right? You can say, "Oh, I don't want to deploy temporal. I'd rather use this other solution." Or
the problem is that temporal is coupled pretty strongly into the code. Yeah, I think so. Dimitro, I know you had that original POC with temporal. What was the end result of that? Is that because that was very much coupled with that other work that you were doing? So what state is that all in?
Basically, I understand that from your side, you had some doubts, which I would be happy to clarify and have maybe a separate discussion, because I would like to know, should I prepare like this a smaller pull request with a smaller piece of functionality and we look on it again? Because I did it like one big piece as just a POC, right? But in order to move forward, I would need to split it into smaller ones.
Yeah.
So I would like to understand if we still have the interest in this, also like for the long term, because for me, I still see a value in temporal as an engine, and it's like very well fitted into the agentic workflows. You can also use it not only to the declarative agents where you basically record all the events and you have the full record, and which you can click and see, visually what happened. You can also generate some smaller workflows like a child workflows and optimize certain activities, but still use the same engine, right? So for example, you can optimize calls to the MCP and other things, because this will be all present in the worker node. So the worker node will have possibility to build a custom workflow on the fly to put their multiple calls, for example, and run it without spending tokens as a single workflow, and then then process it, something like this. So I see like temporal itself not just solve the current issue that how to have a durable execution and everything, but it also opens possibility to have kind of like a more advanced dynamic agents with dynamic workflows.
Yeah, okay. So my main question is just basically like, and the answer to this might be no, right? But is there, if we couple in with temporal, like, is there a way that we can do this durable execution in a pluggable way? Or would we basically be throwing our towel in with temporal? And I'm not saying that in a bad or a good way. I just want to understand better.
I think it changes a little bit the way everything is wired, right? Because it works with this concept of workers. So each agent become a worker. Yep. And then basically, as soon as you have a worker with all the registered tools, you're kind of, you can use it in your workflows, right? So that part is changing the way we currently working with everything a bit. Also, the responsibility who will write to the database, right? So in this case, if you have the workers, then the temporal server will be writing to the database, not the controller.
Yep.
So that's also like backward compatibility question and all other stuff. But again, like if you want to go and do a deep dive into architecture and compare and see, should I prepare like a separate PR only with temporal, and then we have maybe like a more detailed discussion on that? Or
yeah, I think that would be the most helpful. Like I said, I'm very interested. I think in general, though, I'm just a little bit worried with with something like Kagent to say like this is the only way. Again, maybe it's the best way, and I'm not worried for a good reason. But you know what I mean? To say like from our perspective,
Yep.
like from, when using Kagent, if you want durability, this is the only option.
I think it was mentioned by ADK architects also in several discussions we had, like temporal and restate are two options currently. Other things, AWS using it heavily for internal agentic flows, the OpenAI using kind of temporal and other things. So I think it's winning a lot in the industry and used in many places.
Yep.
There are also some maybe other downsides, like, I don't know, maybe there are some limitations that you can run on top of Postgres. Maybe some people will run it on Cassandra. Other stuff which we currently do not support at all. So we need to consider it, just maybe mention it somewhere, if there is any physical limit that, temporal will bring to the database or not. But on the other side, I think it's more battle tested than our current A2A storage. And perhaps it's like brings many different positive things.
So would it replace it? Like you'd stop logging all the tasks and stuff into the cage in Postgres and just use temporal to track all the tasks?
It will be just different tables on maybe on the same schema or different schema. Yes. And you will have actually options to run it on top of Postgres, MySQL, and I think Cassandra.
I mean, we already have Postgres, right? So that is not a problem. And yeah, but I agree with what Dova said. I'm like, okay, what's the,
the crash recovery, right? So the current system that we have is not surviving if you will kill the pods, right? You will get like things somewhere in the middle, stuck, never resumed. Basically, temporal solves that if your pod's crashing, you can basically resume it, because the architecture and the way it is implemented is different by design. So you have these workers, you have all the context captured for each activity, and basically it's either LLM call or tool call, it's recorded, and if something crashes in between, you can resume it. So it also allows you to see when, for example, one agent calls hundreds of like tools, hundreds of sub-agents and stuff like that, and you want to understand what's going on, right? So it will give you very well presented view on that. You will have like the tooling around, so you will see what's going on.
So it would then be outside of Kagent, right? So you'd have your temporal server running, you'd have your Kagent server running, and you're like, okay, I do some stuff in Kagent. And then you're like, okay, I want to figure out what happened, and then you go open the temporal.
It runs as a pod. It runs as a pod, so it's basically runs on the same namespace for us. Or you can maybe configure it to be outside as well, like maybe cloud. I don't know. Some people use temporal as a cloud service in this case.
No, but I see what Dobas is saying. It's like how
I just hesitate with.
Yeah, sorry, go.
I just hesitate with temporal because I feel like temporal is meant to be a programmer tool. Like you're like, oh, I'm writing this 10-step workflow and I'm going to use temporal, and I have all these little callbacks that it calls and stuff like that. With Kagent, there's only one callback, which is, or maybe two, like call the LLM and run the tool, right? It's not like someone's like handwriting. Like with temporal, the nice thing about it is that you're like, okay, I need to do these 10 steps and has all these asynchronous things that I need to do, and you're writing that out by hand. With Kagent, it's literally like run a tool, call the agent. Those are the two actions that need to be resumed. So it's not like you don't need like a general purpose durability tool. Like Kagent is just one pull request away from just on startup, just check if there's anything that wasn't finished and resume it, right? That in my mind, at least, I feel like it's so much closer to it.
It's worth checking. Yeah, we can check also that part and see, but I still believe that we currently not design it in Kagent itself to support it. So we need to see if we can introduce the same functionality on existing database and controllers to have all this resume stuff, or not, and what is missing. I totally agree. Maybe it's possible as well.
Could be some interesting concepts that come from it, though. Like, let's say you could expose the temporal stuff to the agent itself, so the agent could tell the agent, like, hey, you can construct a workflow where you're gonna call that, you're gonna send this prompt to that agent, and then it's gonna send the response to that agent, and then that agent's gonna process, and it's gonna send its response to this other agent, and then that whole temporal workflow.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Walk through it.
That's the thing, because we have workflows, we have sub workflows, child workflows, right? So if we would be able to present more complex multi-agent communication with the sub workflows and connect it all nicely under one root parent workflow, and be able to see all the events and things what's happening, plus what I mentioned before, if we can use dynamically generated workflows, basically like think like NA10 or something similar, where you can generate predefined DAG or something that you need to run with multiple tools, and agent can do it on the fly or can use some library of those workflows. I don't know. It's like it's the next level, So as soon as we have this workflow engine connected and it's like running with our workers, with our tools, we can start to build on top of it some additional functionality. For the basic stuff, I agree we might not need it because it's more complex, right? It brings more things. But if you just want the durability, we can do it also in the current Postgres, probably, right? So that's clear. But I think I understand what we can do. We can prepare basically a PR, only temporal, only, see how it will fit in the current system, and then have this discussion with more examples.
That would be my takeaway for now. I also think it's worth, so.
For example, like we have some internal, still some evaluation going on. Some people asking if we can use, I don't know, Argo events, Argo workflows, and all kind of stuff around, right? Maybe for some people that's their existing tooling. Some people maybe have already temporal and they kind of fine with it because they use it for existing, for other stuff, right? So both options possible. Also, we need to see what is like how it will work together with this eventing model, what we discussed about NATs and so on, because it's also introduced certain durability and certain like persistence. So maybe if we will have the NATs as a second component with all the events, queues, and persistence, maybe there is no need to have temporal itself. All this is still open questions, and on my side, I see benefits of like having the workflow, specialized workflow engine, but it's not necessary that all of you agree on that. So we would need to find agreement.
It does seem cool. I think it's neat. What about like, could the temporal version be a separate runtime? We have Python and Go. Could we have like the Python dash temporal?
Definitely.
Or does it rejigger the whole database and it has to be like a switch over?
In my example, I just added a spec with a flag, so you can say temporal enabled or disabled, and that's it. So it's switching the.
There could be some kind of alpha thing you just experiment with.
Because maybe you can test it only on some of the agents, not the production agents, but maybe some others. And
right, yeah, because at least in my workflow, like a lot of my agents, they're just sub agents, so I actually don't mind if they die because the parent agent can restart them. But like the top level agent is the one that needs to be durable, because if it gets killed, it won't be able to like retry the operation. But all my top level agents, they have instructions that say, oh, if the sub agent like fails, like check what happened, like just try again like up to 5 times or something, and that's usually enough to keep it.
Yeah, what they provide out of the box, like immediately, if you have temporal, you can click on any workflow. You can basically take existing one and kind of resubmit it with everything. And it's like some things like this can give maybe some good examples. Maybe if you're maintaining a lot of different pipelines and you need to maintain them at scale. Again, it's very popular tool specifically with agents, so that's why I'm saying we should just explore it more and try to to maybe evaluate. And I'll take action item as well to prepare a smaller PR, and then we can have this. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I'm also curious, like just the way you're saying this, it just doesn't, it seems like we have all of this information. I agree that I don't want to like recreate the wheel here. But yeah, it just feels like we're also so close to all this stuff, so I don't want to introduce a huge dependency. So I'm torn. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing this smaller POC. All right.
Yeah, and I think the dependency itself, like what they have, it's just a Go binary which they use as a server, right? So it's could be integrated on different levels, and we can look on it more. So it's very nicely integrates with ADK Go, with controller, with everything else. So let's try another round of reviews and checks and discussions with some maybe more advanced examples of the agents calling sub agents with some like sub workflows and all of that, to see if it brings a value in this case.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, sounds good to me. All right. Does anyone else have anything they want to chat about today?
Yeah, time's up anyway. Hopefully next week my stuff will be working. I can try and show you a quick demo of the coding agent.
Time is up at 12:45.
Oh, it's go until 9:45.
But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. We have Peter is back. I don't know where he is now, but he's also working on like a slightly different sandboxing implementation in Kagent. So we'll also have that as an option, a bit more lifecycle driven. But I'm definitely interested to see your example, because like you said, it works today. So.
By the way, which coding agent do you use? Is it like just you're using current Kagent ADK as a coding agent, or do you use external one?
Yeah, I have. I was thinking of trying to demo. I'm just not sure if it's. I have to figure out if this fix if this Gemini fix actually worked.
Okay.
But
because I think this discussion we had previously about sandboxes, like should we couple sandbox and agents, or should sandbox be always like remotely executed? Because like it's kind of like a different type of workload. The agents itself, LLM calls are very, let's say, like more like serverless, lightweight. And,
yeah, I think we can offer both, though, right? Like it doesn't need to be one or the other. Our system can already pretty much do both.
Yeah, and I'm trying just to understand like what is the right kind of design for this, because like you may have. I think even now, if you look on the domain of sandboxes, there are at least 5 different companies who provide sandboxes over API. You have like those remote Python execution, different other stuff, that you can have like API calls. They have subscription-based, whatever different things. They guarantee that you can run all of these things remotely. So I'm just trying to see if we're implementing those sandboxes, what is our general direction? Do we stay with like CNCF and Kubernetes sandbox solution? Do we want also to support like those remote sandboxes as well from APIs? Do you have any high-level idea?
That's a great question. I think for me, what I would say is like it should be pluggable, right? Because if you're going the remote option, right, then I think you should be able to use whatever sandbox you want. So again, there's different ways. So for example, right? If you wanted to, and Dobus already did this, right? You can use whatever, because everything in our system is MCP, right? You can already use whatever sandbox you want to do anything in our system, right? Like that, there's nothing stopping you. The question is just, what are the first class sandboxing primitives in Kagent? And I think that a good start for that is the Kubernetes agent sandbox, just because it's like an emerging standard. So I think that like there's kind of two, but I do think that there's two levels, right? Like the two levels are, first class support in terms of like you want to actually run Kagent agents in sandboxes, right? Like that you want to actually run those in sandboxes. That I think we should use Kubernetes native technology for that, because we're talking about actually running the agents. But if you want to run stuff in a sandbox, right, you can already do that today.
Right. Yeah, I think there are, you're correct. There are two different parts. One part is how we run agents, and like also, do we want to keep agents as pods? Do we want to make them sleep on other stuff to allow like thousands of them on one node? And second one is like how we isolate the tooling and the runtime from calling Python, calling all the CLIs and network and all of that. Yeah, and
it seems nicer to me not to run the actual commands. Like if you have, let's say you have Kagent agent running and it has your Anthropic API key because it needs access to Anthropic, and then you're running like shell commands. Those shell commands, then they may also inherit access to your Anthropic API key or AWS credentials, things like that, right? Whereas if you separate the agent, where the agent is running and where the things that it runs are running, then I think that's better from a
that's exactly like one of the things when you implement a bash tool, you usually take care of hiding the outside environments. Yeah, so you need to invoke it without those Anthropic keys and everything which pod has.
Yeah, I agree. So there are answers there too, like sandboxes that have, like networking primitives built into them so that they can inject tokens for you. So like there are answers to that. But in general, again, like I think part of the problem here, and this has always been an issue that Kagent has had, Kagent can actually basically do anything you want it to, assuming you understand what it can do, which is, again, basically anything, right? I think part of it is just an educational issue where, like Dobus, you were able to figure out that Kagent can do all this stuff, right? But most people don't understand that. And I think, so that's why I messaged you about doing a, right, that's explicitly why I messaged you about a blog, because I think the most important thing here is getting people to understand and in general, I think this is a problem, getting people to understand how they can use Kagent for various use cases. And I think the biggest part of that is just showing them. So yeah. But yeah.
I think at the beginning, most of the people were seeing Kagent as a kind of SRE DevOps tool, when I think my case also, Dobus is doing the same or similar. We are running it as a general purpose, tool for other stuff, like running pipelines with coding agents and stuff like this. And those use cases are not really explained in the public space, right? So we're not talking about that, like running coding agents as pipelines at scale.
Yeah. But there's no reason you can't.
Kagent and Sandbox project could either one or the other provided an MCP server, like an official one. That would probably help a lot. And then that you could reference that in the documentation of Kagent and be like, here's how you set up your agent to like spin up a sandbox and like run commands and use it for whatever, coding tasks.
That's a great idea. What if we created an MCP server for Agent Sandbox in Kagent, so that like Kagent could act as the broker automatically, right? Like we built in, I mean, you could already do that with our K8s tool, right? You could explain to it how to create sandboxes, but it's not as easy as like a purpose. So, but maybe we could have like a purpose-built one, right? We could even put it in a new repo or something. It literally the entire purpose of it is to act as an MCP server for the Agent Sandbox project, and then maybe we could donate it to them later.
But you know, the bigger puzzle, it still depends on file system that is pending, right? We are waiting for the kind of file system solution that I think Ethan, you work on it.
Yeah, so Peter's working on that now.
Yeah, so those couple of things for me, like before we start to explain things and you know, write the books and articles and everything, maybe we should come to some minimal functionality which is we know already there or coming, because
no, but Dobas's solution fixes that, right?
The sandbox of Kubernetes sandbox.
Yeah, like that thing already has. If you use a persistent volume, then it can already do that. You can use warm pools with persistent volumes.
Yeah.
It's incredibly slow to start up. I have my issues with Agent Sandbox, but I think for this use case, if you want to create a persistent volume that the sandbox can access during a session, right? That's exactly what Dobas is doing. I think it's a good yeah.
Yeah, it works pretty well. It's not super fast, but because I'm just doing like offline tasks, I don't need super performance, right? I just kick it off and let it run.
Right, because it has to spin up a pod, it has to get a persistent volume, right? Like,
yeah. When you use the warm pool, it's pretty good, right? Because then it takes one from the pool and then it'll start up the next one. So it can start up within like a few seconds if there's available warm pool sandboxes. You can just scale up or down your warm pool as your needs.
So again, I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's a good. I think it's a good solution to plug into the existing Kagent model. And then, so what we're working on the side, what Peter's working on is he's working on basically another model of agent that instead of creating a deployment that can serve many sessions, it just spins up a single lifecycle agent. So basically the lifecycle of that agent is tied completely to that resource, right? So you create this agent, it will create a sandbox, which hosts that, which basically is that agent. And that agent can only ever have one session. And it's the session associated with that CRD, right? With that resource. And when you delete that CRD, that object goes away. And that thing runs in a persistent sandbox, right? So, and that's going to be basically
the requests to the agent in that case.
What do you mean?
Or so in Kagent, you would create like a new agent, like your agent list would just have like multiple agents listed, like one for each sandbox.
So yeah, basically exactly. So it would be a different type of agent. Like, I don't know if it'll be a new CRD or some sort of option in the agent. We haven't decided, and hopefully he'll be around to talk about it at the next meeting. But basically, it'll be like in the agent list, right? You'll have instead of showing up many sessions, right? That agent will just have a single session, and you'll only be able to communicate with it via a single session, because the session is tied into the life cycle of that object, basically. So as long as that object exists, right, you're communicating with it. The file system stays around. Tools all interact with it in the same way. So it's like more similar to how other it's just an alternate path, right? Instead of having these like long-lived ephemeral agent requests, right, you have a actual like persistent agent. So it's a little bit
like it's the way that people just run Claude code and just like send messages to Claude code as a binary.
Exactly.
So because Claude code does support multiple sessions in theory, but just like one at a time. So you like switch between sessions.
Right.
No, but exactly. one of the issues with these long-running sessions, if you conduct it with two different subjects, this is happening constantly when you have this like open close style agent in your chat, right? You gave it like one message, check this link, and then second message, remind me something. And then it's totally confused because it's like one session has two different things in the context, and it's like it's lost very quickly.
Yep.
So, and also like it needs regularly do this context compaction, all kind of stuff. Yeah. So, so I'm still I'm not sure I understand the use case when we have this long running lifecycle agent with one session. What is the main purpose of it? Like for which?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing as Claude Code, like Dova said, right? Like first of all, like we have compaction, right? Like, and fundamentally, it's the same like context rot and context. What's the word? Like poisoning, right? Is a problem regardless, and something that we need to solve. So this is just more, more reason to solve those problems. And it's something that we're going to need anyway, regardless of our sandboxing pattern. Because in the long run, as long as you have long running contexts, you have those issues. So yeah,
I understand when you need the files and basically you have some like dirty work in progress changes which are not committed, right? Then you need something like this under the hood for the agent, but you can basically restart or resume or like respawn the agent if needed, right? So it's not necessarily needs to be like up and running and waiting for messages. It's like it's got some task via MCP or via something. It's just processing the queue of tasks, and that's it. Like still okay anyway, but we'll see maybe the demo.
It's got some. What do you mean? It's got some queue of tasks?
Because technically, if you have this like example of Claude Code and other stuff, right? I think there are like you can do something which is more interactive, like a planning. And after planning, as soon as you generated like my spec with task and with prompt, and you accumulate a number of those specs and plans and prompts, then you just run a queue of tasks with Claude Code. You don't need to open it. It just runs in the background and it's processing all of them, like one by one. And that's the only time when you really need like a bit more attention. You need to decide certain like decisions with some like pros and cons, like this way or that way. And for that part, when you do planning, you need basically spend some interactive, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you run it like for 40 minutes or 1 hour until it's like finishing the implementation. And then basically that's how you normally use now this Claude Code and everything. By the way, I think there are some limitations what is allowed and how you can run Claude Code in this situation. I think we are not allowed to run Claude Code as a subscription, as a...
To be clear, I'm not talking about running actual Claude Code.
Yeah, I know. I just remembered someone was explaining this just a few days ago, saying that they actually use the API-based access because you cannot use subscription-based tokens in the Kubernetes with this kind of queue mechanism and everything in commercial products. It's not allowed. It's breaking the
you have to use the API.
Don't ask, don't tell, Dimitro. Don't say anything about it, okay?
No, I'm not using it like
Nobody on this call wrote some kind of custom Python proxy that makes his Kubernetes traffic look like Claude Code traffic. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's I think we're going to be going back and forth about all this stuff a bunch over the next couple of months because it's important. I think, but like I said, I think that I kind of like the idea about creating an MCP server for Agent Sandbox so that, it's more like, first of all, I think it would be a great contribution to the overall project and community from Kagent. And it would allow easier like integration with it from our current agent model, regardless of how we expose different agent models going forward. All right, I have another meeting that I have to hop into really soon, so I'm gonna hop off. But this was a great conversation, and we'll be back next week. All right, talk to y'all later.
See ya.
See you.